No, it's fine.
Projector sucks.
Okay, everybody. Could I ask you all to consider silencing your phones, just so we don't get interrupted? I was reminded to do that myself. First of all, thank you all for coming on such a beautiful sunny day. We were figuring that the temperature might conflict with the crowd we were going to get today. My name is Jacques Monfrance, and we are Preserve Yorktown. It's a grassroots organization, ever growing in membership, that is very concerned about these large cruise ships coming into the York River. We're talking about thousands of passengers, and a lot of folks don't know about this. It's been rather secretively done.
Jacques,
So,
can you speak a little louder, please?
oh, sorry,
Or use the
yes.
microphone if there is one.
I don't think there is a microphone. I'm sorry.
Yes, bellow.
I'll bellow. Okay, so a lot of people don't know about this, so part of the reason for this meeting is to try to familiarize folks in the county, both in York and Gloucester County, what some of the issues are. They're rather serious, and we're hoping that by the end of this meeting, some of you all will be willing to spread the word, take some signs, get involved a little bit. This is a David versus Goliath situation. Goliath in the form of an octopus. They are a corporation worth $12.2 billion. They've spread their tentacles widely already, to the state level, local government level. So we're trying to battle this insidious situation. So what we're going to do today is our good friend and fearless leader and petition guru, Bob Hodgson, is going to do a little PowerPoint presentation. And so thank you, Bob. I forgot to push the button. So basically, that concerns our summary of our concerns and some of the issues that other communities have dealt with these large cruise ships. We're going to try to explain what we've done so far. We've accomplished a few things. And then what we hope to get you all involved with is some of the future actions that we are planning to undertake. And then hopefully there'll be some time for questions and answers. So without further ado, here's Bob with the presentation. Thank you all for coming.
Welcome, everyone. I'll try to speak up. I'm Bob Hodgson. I'm a resident of Yorktown, and I'll start to tell you, I don't like public speaking. All right, I'm not loud enough. Sorry. I don't like public speaking, but I'll do the best I can because I think this is important. And I want to start to tell the community what Preserve Yorktown and the people that have put this together have begun to learn about the cruise industry, because I think it's very important to spread that word. And we are learning. We were really blindsided by this. We didn't know much about it until really July, when we were made aware through seeing that Yorktown was listed on the agenda for Princess Cruise Line to come, that they were coming to our community. So a lot of this was done without community input, and we're trying to fix that. So I won't spend too much time on Yorktown. Everybody's familiar with our beautiful village, and it's used by not only the community within Yorktown, but by Gloucester and Williamsburg and Jamestown. And so we're all affected by this. And they want to turn it into an international port of call for these massive ships is what they want to do. And it's already in the plans. You see the Waterman's Museum here. Well, that's the site of where they want to put a very large pier to bring the boats in, to basically bring thousands and thousands of tourists to Yorktown into the area. And the scale of these things cannot be underestimated. You will not be able to see the Coleman Bridge when that thing is parked there. When you take your walk down along that back walkway to see the sunset over the cove back there, you turn around, the bridge will be blotted from the sky. You won't see anything on the other side when those ships are there. The scale's immense. So this is one of the ships in Alaska, at Sitka, Alaska. The Waterman's is about a story and a half. That's the ship, right? So they're really, really large compared to these small ports that they're going into. And this is just not, in our opinion, it's not the right fit for Yorktown. Yeah, I think that'll help. So this is sort of a scale drawing of what's going on here. So the ship is 207 feet tall. The Coleman Bridge Road is 90 feet tall, right? I think the Yorktown Monument is a little over 100. And then there's Nelson House down there to the left. Back when I worked on the Architectural Review Committee, we reviewed houses coming to the neighborhood. And there was an unwritten rule that no structures could be bigger than the Nelson House. That's what we went by all the time, and we always held to that. We had people make their houses shorter so they weren't taller than the Nelson House. But there's nothing against this thing coming into our village. Next slide. Here's another picture of the scale. So that's the campus of York High School. There's the field. It's just incredible the size of these things. If you've never seen one up close, you know, maybe go down to Norfolk Harbor. I walked up to one in Cape Canaveral not too long ago. They're just incredibly large systems. They're floating cities, right, with restaurants and all the cabins and slides and everything else that comes with it for thousands and thousands of people. And so one of the questions that we get asked is, well, it's just a couple visits, a couple times a year. What's the big deal? Well, we're finding out that that's not the case. This was an email sent to the county saying they want to ramp up to 27 visits per year with 3,000 passengers per visit. Well, we've been hearing that they're going to bring in the Island Princess. The Island Princess, which is the ship I just showed you compared to those scales, is the smaller ship. It only carries 2,200 passengers. So they're actually going to bring bigger ships than that one to Yorktown, is the plan. And the other thing I want to point out here, and I'll talk more about this later, is this eyes-only communication, not for public disclosure. We're seeing a lot of lack of transparency with our Yorktown officials. Next slide. I'm going to play a little video here. This took place in July 18th at the Board of Supervisors meeting, and when asked about Princess Cruises, these were some of the comments that the board said. Did you just quickly? Sorry.
Sorry.
Fell asleep on us. Try again.
Hang on.
I have to have some technical difficulties, right?
That's pretty important.
It did hurt, didn't it?
Can you be louder?
Thank you. I'm gonna talk about cruise. I got another thing I wanna talk about too, with cruise license. Can you get that there, your visa, something like so? Thank you. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna talk about cruise. I got another thing I wanna talk about too, with the cruise license, everybody showed up. And I wanted to let folks understand a little bit how I go about the decision-making process, and we're not even close to anything on the cruise
Nobody knows anything.
So so this was back in July, right? So this was what the board's response about asking about the cruise ships, right? Back in July, go back to December of this year. This is a flurry of letters that happened. Sorry, of last year, December of last year. So, these are some letters that were being sent around to the county. You notice Tom Shepard said, I'm not aware of anything going on with the county staff either. Another thing he said, which I'd like to point out, he said, oh, they asked to meet with us one-on-one or one-on-two. There's a reason for that. And the reason is if they had 3 Board of Supervisors members, they would have had to make a record of the meeting, right? So they're doing this, I don't know how Princess Cruz knew that. Someone must have told them on the board, hey, we can't meet 3 of us to talk about this. But anyway, so these are some of the letters. And look at the things put in them, for your eyes only, hold in strictest confidence. This says basically that John here, John Hagen, I believe, who's the president of Princess Cruises, has no problem with using the Princess Cruise line so that we can come out of the closet. This was basically done behind closed doors. This is days before. This is a letter drafted by, I believe, Princess Cruises for our officials to send to the state to request for funding for $15 million. Next slide. There's the letter at the top. Here's the letter that went out just a few days later, December 20th, from the Board of Supervisors. Signed by Sheila Knoll, Tom Shepard, the man who just said he knew nothing, right? Is asking the state for $15 million of appropriation for the initial phase of a pier, right? So they're just, it's incredible. And then they turn around and we get actually a budget allocation of $8.5 million. That doesn't happen without a lot of stuff going on. And nobody knew about this, at least in my neighborhood, or anybody else in New York County that I've talked with. And this all went on way back in December with no public meetings, no public input. So personally, I find this very upsetting, and I think this kind of stuff shouldn't be going on. There's actually a member of Preserve Yorktown started another petition, we're Code of Ethics, and I can share these slides with anybody who wants them. You can click on that link and go to it. But I don't think this is the way you're supposed to have transparent government, in my opinion. So that's a problem. Next slide. The other problem is, what kind of business partner do you want? So if you're in business, you're a man or woman setting up shop and trying to get business partners, here's some questions you might ask. Does your partner obey the law? Does your partner treat its people well? Does it treat your local businesses well? Is your business partner reliable, ethical, transparent? Is your partner a good steward of the environment? Does your partner pay its fair share of taxes in the United States? Does your business partner care about your local culture or just its bottom line? I can tell you the cruise industry doesn't do any of this. And it's not my word, it's the word of a body of evidence that's out there today about the cruise industry. Next slide. This is just a glimpse of headlines. It doesn't take hard to find information about Princess Cruise Lines and the cruise industry in general. Princess Cruise has been convicted multiple times of pollution violation. And not only multiple times, but they paid the largest fine ever of any cruise industry for this. They've also been cited for other multiple violations of pollution in harbors. This is from a group called Friends of Earth, and they rate all the different cruise industries. This is what they rated Princess Cruise Lines on water quality compliance. This is what they gave them on transparency. We know that they're not transparent for sure. But it's not only that, they fly their ships what's called under a flag of convenience. They register them outside the United States, so they don't have to pay US taxes, and they don't have to follow US labor laws. And they work their people long hours, 70-hour weeks, sometimes no weekends off, and they don't pay them very well. They also have some very suspect business practices. They actually tax the businesses for selling to their passengers through this program they call the Medallion Program. And so if you're not a member of their program, then they're not gonna recommend that you go to that business. And then if you do go to that business, they get a kickback, right? So there's all kinds of things with this industry that just make you say, is this the kind of business we want in York County? I mean, there's just too many red flags here. And I'll talk about the pollution more in a second. Next slide. But before I do, so I'm not gonna read this, but this is a letter that we received from Carla Hart from Juneau, Alaska. Princess Cruise held a private meeting where they videotaped it, and York County put it up on their website. Well, she happened to see this video, and she felt compelled to write us this letter. And it basically talks about false claims that the cruise industry makes. She talks about it in terms of colonization. I wonder if she did that because, because of our history and exploitation. So this was an unsolicited letter that came from somebody from Alaska that said, look out for these guys. Next slide. And here's another one. A few weeks, I think the week before last, we had the village garage sale, and some of the people in the neighborhood started talking with this woman, Melanie, and she had a similar story from Charleston. And she talks about the hidden agenda, how it's sugar-coated, how originally they touted economic benefits while downplaying the harmful consequences. This is exactly the same recipe that we've seen to date here as well. Next slide. And it's a common theme over and over again. Bar Harbor, Charleston, Sitka, Juneau, all these places, the same thing happened, and they're all trying to ban or limit cruise ships now. It's the way that this system operates. They get in, they promise things, they expand, and they cause all kinds of havoc in the community, and people try to get rid of them. And it's very costly to get rid of them once they're here. It just is. I've talked with people at Bar Harbor, I've talked with people at Sitka, Juneau, Seattle, Amsterdam, and maybe a few others, and they've all said the same thing to me. Don't let them get in here in the first place. Their plan is to expand. That's what they're gonna do. If you look at pictures of cruise ships at these small harbor towns, there's almost always more than one ship there. Did they come in and say, hey, we wanna bring 10 ships to your little town? No, they didn't. They said, we have one ship, it's gonna be an economic boom for your businesses. And they end up with something they didn't ask for. It happens over and over again. In Rome, they're building the 3rd pier in Rome right now, and they're trying to stop that. Anyway, so, and just a note, it's already started, the money's been allocated, the plans are, so, it's not like, it's hidden at this point. They're gonna expand it, and we don't know to what extent, and our board of supervisors hasn't asked a question or isn't telling what the real plan is. Next slide. So some more on the plan. These were some concept drawings that were received at a meeting at the Waterman's Museum with some of the members of Preserve Yorktown. I was not there at the meeting, but it clearly shows in this one over here, the plan for a pier. And you can see part of a Princess cruise ship there, to give you some scale. And so you can't even see the whole ship. So this ship is bigger than the whole campus, right? If you look at this one here, look at the size of the pier. I mean, that platform with all the buildings on it is the size of the whole campus here in the Waterman's Museum. This is a massive pier, and this is an initial phase potentially, right? There could be a second phase which actually this is a tender pier, but there could be a second phase where they actually dock the boat as well. Yes, sir.
Has anybody addressed the issue of whether that thing will fit through the Coleman Bridge?
It will fit through the Coleman Bridge. Yeah, it can fit through the Coleman Bridge, but it's going to be quite a sight, I tell you.
But every time that thing comes to town, they got to open the Coleman.
Yes, so there will be bridge openings.
We need to try to hold the questions until the end, please. I'm glad for your curiosity, but we can.
How we turn the lights off?
We have a limited amount of time. I don't know what sabotage are.
Yeah, so there will be bridge openings. That's a very good point. So, and these, I read it. These are just concept drawings. We don't know everything. These were done by Disney. which I believe is the parent of Carnival, which I believe is the parent of Princess, right? So, you know, it's already in the works in terms of these plans, and I just think people need to understand, once all this gets going and is done, whatever happens from there on, we're gonna have very little control over it. Next. So there's a lot of information here. I'm gonna try to explain it. I've learned a lot about pollution. First of all, the York River is a very special watershed. You know, it's home to many, many different species, and it needs to be protected. What this chart over here, the thing I want you to take away from this is, first of all, cruise ships burn the worst possible thing they can. The cheapest, worst fuel possible. It's called bunker fuel. It's the sludge that remains at the bottom of the cruise barrel, and it contains all kinds of nasty stuff in it. And that's what they burn because it's cheaper. When you look at the output of these cruise ships, and you compare them to cars, it's just incredible the amount of dirty output that these things have. Compared to cars, in terms of CO2, 83,000 cars is equivalent to what this thing puts out. So people say sometimes, well, you're gonna have people in the village anyhow. Well, when was the last time we had 83,000 cars with their engine running all day long, pumping out CO2? Or nitrogen oxide, 421,000 cars. Somebody's trying to make us end the meeting, right? So, on particle emissions, over 1 million cars worth of particle emissions. 1 million cars worth. And then sulfur dioxide, this number is just staggering. I can't even comprehend it. 376 million cars worth of sulfur dioxide. And that is really nasty stuff. They tell you, oh, we have scrubbers to scrub the exhaust. Well, the scrubbers, open loop scrubbers, take the particulate out of the exhaust and put it into the water. Many harbors are banning open loop scrubbers for that exact reason right now. But you don't hear that story from them. It's all good in terms of their eyes. Next slide. So what do all these numbers mean to you? Nitrogen oxide is health issues. It's respiratory issues. It's chronic lung disease. CO2, a greenhouse gas. It's a climate change issue. Sulfur dioxide, this is the big one, 376 million tons of car. Turns to sulfuric acid, think acid rain. What does acid rain do? It does ocean acidification, eats away at crabs, oysters, anything with a shell. It decays limestone statues, graveyard statues, whatever. It's nasty stuff. It runs back into the river, causes problems. It's just really bad. These are world-class producers of pollution. The Carnival ships release more toxic sulfur gases than all the cars in Europe. How many cars are in Europe? That's like incomprehensible to me, right? This is a really dirty industry, and they burn this stuff because it's cheaper to do it. And they're gonna burn it here, right? The cruise ships are allowed to dump waste once they get, I believe it's 3.5 miles offshore, 3 miles offshore, thank you. So that's not that far offshore. We gotta think about the Chesapeake Bay here too. And so, you know, that's another issue. Then there is noise pollution, and there's also light pollution that both have stresses on marine life. And it doesn't happen frequently, but there are accidents as well. And what's York County gonna do in the event of some kind of accident in terms of spillage in our York River? So this is bad. I mean, it's just something that we need to think about and we should be considering, and no one's talking about it in the county. Next. So I'll wrap up now with just a few more slides. This is really the tip of the iceberg. This is stuff we've learned just in the past couple months. There's a whole bunch of stuff I'm sure we don't know, and I don't expect it to be a lot of good news. But to me, this is enough to say, hey, you know, we really need to stop this and stop it in its tracks now, because it's not good for our community. Next slide. So we have a petition. If you haven't signed it yet, I think we're just a few signatures short of 6,000 signatures. We could probably break that milestone today if a few people sign a petition. And what we've done is we've done a lot of updates to the petition, talk about a lot of the issues that I just talked about here. And so all this information and much, much more is referenced in these links. So if you want to see the articles, you want to see the studies, you want to see all that kind of stuff, it's all available here. And I'll be happy to anybody that signs up and wants to get more information, I'll be happy to send this whole presentation with all the links to you after the meeting so that you can find out for yourself more about this industry and then start to share it with your neighbors. One last slide. So I added this one just today. It's an hour or so before the meeting started, and I'm a NASA geek, and so when I remembered this quote, I said, how appropriate, right? So, you know, you see the same story in harbor after harbor, small town after small town, and you know, that's the definition of insanity. If York County says, oh, hey, it's not gonna happen to me, you know, something's not right. So, thank you, Alan. Yes, sir.
So are you saying that they want to put a pier in the length of a football field?
Yeah, so these
It's the length of a football field.
probably,
Yeah.
it looked to me about that size. The boats themselves are 3 football fields long, right?
We really have to finish up, and then we're gonna entertain some questions.
Yeah, but he's got more.
Yeah, I just,
That's the part of why we don't want it. He's gonna talk a little bit more, then I'll have the answer.
yeah, I just wanna add that, you know, we are not, as an organization, against cruise ship tourism. We already have American Cruise Lines coming into Yorktown. They are by far and away far more environmentally responsible than these Princess line ships are. They are made in Maryland, they pay American taxes, they have to adhere to American labor laws, they burn a low sulfur diesel fuel, so they don't do the serious pollution that Princess cruise ships do. So I don't want you all to think that we're just against all kinds of tourism. That's not the case. We just think that these cruise lines, the American cruise line ships, are also carry only 180 to 200 passengers. That's the kind of scale that I think is appropriate, or that we think is appropriate for Yorktown. So don't brand us as being against cruise ship tourism. That's not the case.
Just to add on to that, and so the other day someone posted the American Eagle on a Facebook post, and they said, what's wrong with this? You know, why are people against the cruise industry? And, you know, that's a misconception, because the boat he posted carries 109 passengers compared to 3,000. It's a factor of 30, right? That's a big number. Think about your house if it was 30 times bigger, how much space you have, right? So there's no comparison to these small river cruises, which I think would be actually an excellent business to bring tourism into Yorktown, versus this, I don't know what to call it. Behemoth thing.
Behemoth, right.
Right.
So, this is fairly clearly, indicates what we've done. We've made some good progress. We've had some TV, and media, publicity. We'd like to get a bit more of it. We did invite the press to come today. Don't see anybody here as far as I know, but, you know, this is an issue that has largely gone unnoticed. And what I'd like to ask each of you to do is tell a neighbor, tell your homeowners association about this. We'd be glad to come and speak to any group that would request us to do so. So anyway, think about that. Try to get involved. This is an ongoing thing. If we don't do something about it, you know, we're just going to have to accept what happens. So some of the future actions that we're trying to accomplish are these up here on the list, and perhaps the most important of these for the immediate future is to try to get somebody in this group who might have experience with GoFundMe aspects. We've so far pretty much supported this financially out of our own pockets, but we're trying to get a GoFundMe campaign going so that we can try to recoup some of our costs and continue to make these signs. The signs cost us $10 each, so please take them. We're not asking for money. If you want to make a contribution, great. It's much more important to us to get the word out. We have a Facebook group that's becoming active, and we plan on being around when these cruise ships come to town to express our displeasure. So I mentioned that we'd be glad to speak with anybody in HOAs or any clubs or whatever. We talked with the Yorktown Rotary Club, another member and I, and we must reach out to the state legislature. This is a really important issue to try to get them to understand that this has all been done under the cloak of secrecy, and we don't want it. So think about helping out with that. And then we have a number of requests. If any, you all have probably left your email behind. If you want to be involved with us, we'll keep you posted on what things we're doing. Please sign the petition, as Bob mentioned. Anyway, these are all the things that we're up to. We've been hammering at the Board of Supervisors meetings every time they have one about this issue. So it's an ongoing process, and we would greatly appreciate your help. And scan the QR code, sign the petition, and get involved. Thank you all for coming, and we would be glad to. We've got a bunch of handouts here that we should, we left them on the table. I thought people were picking them up. We have a copy of the 2 letters, the unsolicited letters on the table here. Please read them. They're very insightful and very inspirational for our group. We also have another handout that you all could pick up that basically suggests the kinds of things that you can do to stop this from happening. And that's it. If you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
You had a question before, sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it appeared to me since that ship, as it is 900 feet long, is, just a little bit, shorter than a modern Nimitz aircraft carrier. Obviously, the displacement's not the same, it's 26 feet,
Right.
200 feet long. So think about it, man, it's like an aircraft carrier sitting there.
Yeah, that's for people from Hampton Roads that have been to the shipyard, you know what that means. Yes, sir.
Has anybody addressed the issue of what the hell are 5,000 people gonna do in York?
They're not.
Can you imagine?
They're expanding the bus
Swamping the shops. There's going to be excursions to Norfolk.
It's a very, very good question.
To Jamestown, it's gonna clog up all the roads.
Well,
They're gonna have lots more bus traffic going up and down the Parkway to
Yeah,
Jamestown.
and so,
It's not just a local phenomena, this is gonna affect the whole region. Does anybody know?
we will be a bus depot for Williamsburg,
There you go.
Jamestown.
So who's gonna pay
And
for
think
that?
about
All of
putting
us.
thousands of people on a bus. That's a lot of buses.
Yeah.
And so, and I didn't talk about bus pollution, but that's a drop in the bucket compared to ships.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Has anybody talked to the Navy about the Yorktown Weapons Station and how this would impact them, especially if there's an incident?
There are some
You
people
can answer
reaching
that?
out, yeah.
The answer is yes.
Can I address the question of people coming off the ship as well? It's generally, it's the 2/3, 1/3 is the general, the general scenario where 1/3 of the passengers stay on the ship, 2/3 get off. Presumably, 1/3 go off on, trips, and another third stays behind and walks around locally. I don't know if they can do that.
That's assuming one ship.
That's assuming one shift. We don't really know. I mean, Yorktown is, an interesting area, but Williamsburg and Jamestown have I think, a much stronger historical draw.
Let's rewind to COVID. for a minute. 5,000 people are getting off that ship. Well, thousands of people are getting off.
3,080 on the
How
beach.
many of those, when we have the next pandemic, how are we gonna control it? That's gonna be a burden on the local community
There's
to
another-
inspect, the state maybe to bless that ship to even dock here, if they have any cases at all. If they dock here and they get trapped, you're familiar with the one that wandered at sea for a week or two because everybody on board had the flu and Louisiana wouldn't let them dock in New Orleans.
Somebody
Remember
just
that?
brought us an article about the Australia situation where 21 people died, I think it was, of COVID, just
The one in
recently.
Japan, the ship was at the dock for
Yeah,
months.
anyway, that is an issue.
I got one more, I had to follow up.
Let me.
What does York County get out of this financially?
Yeah,
Why
that's a
are
good
we
one.
allowing them to inconvenience us, cost us extra money? What are we going to gain from this? I don't care about them going over to Williamsburg and Jamestown. What are we getting out of
Well,
this?
no one's told me what we're getting out of it, but clearly somebody thinks it's a good decision. I mean, obviously, there will be some tax dollars from revenue spent in the area. I can't think of anything else.
I just wanted to add to his question. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but a tour company was planned on taking care of the transportation and things to other places, setting up different bush gardens, Norfolk. They were asked what they were going to do for Yorktown tours. They said they didn't want anything to do with touring Yorktown. They want nothing to do with taking these people around Yorktown.
And to add to that, I believe the company they were booking is a Norfolk company to run the tours.
What
Yes.
about the environmental groups? It seems to me that there's a lot of power in all the environmental groups. Do they know about this? Because the York
Sierra
River,
Club is opposed to this.
Sierra Club, well, what are they doing to help us? There are a lot of groups.
So we're trying to reach out to groups, that can, get the word out for us and try to help. I mean, you're from Sierra Club, is that right? And so, we have a representative here today, which is great. We need connections to people that can talk to people in these organizations. I mean, if you got an HOA and you can talk at your HOA meeting in your community, tell the story for us. If you have a friend that's, works at VIMS, get them involved. Any way you can make these connections, I think the more people we can talk with and connect with, then maybe they will have some new ideas. That's the one thing I really want to come out of this meeting with today is fresh ideas and new things that we can try, things like that. But
I will say, I work at VIMS, and I used to work at VIMS, and I've reached out to people there, and they're definitely involved, but they don't have an official role until they're asked to do so by the Commonwealth. The
so if you
Virginia
know
Marine-
someone, you can write your state delegate and ask them to tell VIMS to get involved.
And the other,
I'm sorry
To
to cut
follow
you
on
off.
with
Go ahead.
follow on with that, normally, since this is an inland waterway, the Corps of Engineers should be involved with any sort of impact relative to this, as well as triggering the National Environmental Policy Act, the NEPA Act, which should rightly be in place. Notwithstanding VMI and Virginia Department of Environmental Quality and so on and so forth, these agencies should all be there. There should be hearings, there should be open, I mean, you just can't do stuff like this because the
there is
federal
a
government.
process, but we've been kept in the dark for the most part, but I'm sure once they get to the point where they start to build a pier, there's gonna be some.
And they've
public
talked
hearings.
with the Coast Guard. Princess Cruises knows how to do this. They've done this in city after city, harbor town after harbor town. They're working all these things in the background, talking with the Naval Station, talking with the Coast Guard, talking with state delegates and senators. And they're aligning all the pieces on the board to do this, and we're late to the game, quite frankly.
And they have very deep pockets,
They have two paid
very deep pockets.
They have two paid lobbyists.
Two paid lobbyists, the architect that rendered these, or showed us these drawings is on their payroll. They typically, the way they often operate is they seek out nonprofits that are struggling financially. They try to give large checks. They did this at their little, Princess Cruise Line Disney show that they had. It was invitation only. And they made sure that the crowd was about equally split. They split everybody up for questions in the four corners of this big room. The press was there. The press couldn't hear the questions that were asked. They couldn't hear the answers. One was it doesn't matter anyway. But anyway, that's a tactic they use. And they gave a $5,000 check to the museum. They also tried to get another $5,000, or I don't know how much it was, to another nonprofit, and they refused it. So this is the way they're trying to worm their way into a community.
Back there?
Wouldn't they ultimately have to go through VMRC?
They do.
They do?
And VMRC has their own environmental department, and it's just not quite as scientifically heavy as PIMS is. But yeah, they do, and they will definitely have to do some kind of a.
But, Jacques, isn't VMRC and these other regulatory agencies will only be involved when it gets to the point of dredging for the pier?
Yeah, basically.
Otherwise, they can't do anything until they get a joint permit authority.
Correct.
Has anybody talked about the amount of money it's gonna cost us for police, for sanitation? I mean, you asked about what is this gonna give us? It's what is it gonna cost us? It's
That's
gonna
why I was
cost us
asking that. It's gonna be
millions of
negative.
dollars.
It's gonna be negative. And someone brought up the other day, about contingency planning too, like if there's a fire on the ship or something like that. There's all sorts of infrastructure for special cases as well, which you hope never happen, but needs to be in place for those kind of things as well. But yeah, one of the things the woman from Charleston, in her letter, she talks about the litter that's left, after the cruise ships come in. Larry?
Keep in mind also, this is a foreign ship, so it has totally different security requirements than an American cruise line ship has.
Well, and people get drink tickets and drink like crazy on these boats. I've been on cruises before. And they're gonna be drinking and carrying on and not really care about our town.
Well, that's pretty much what.
And that's,
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
right, no, but what the cost to us is gonna be astronomical
Yeah,
in police and in sanitation.
I don't think they've done due diligence
No.
in examining those kinds of questions.
Notwithstanding how many buses it's gonna take to ferry 2,000 people out of here.
Just real quickly, based on the county's predictions, it'll be 30 or 40 buses each time. Therefore, there's 60 or 80 round trips being made into town. The buses will gather at the American Revolution Museum, and they'll come to the parking lot directly across the street from the Waterman's Museum, and that's where they'll stage. And supposedly the buses will go across the street into the parking lot, which according to the plan has trees parked all over it, but that's another thing. So that's what the plan is for right now, with those buses idling, spewing toxic fumes all the time. That's, and I base that on the county's secret predictions of how many people will be taking these tours to other places.
Larry, you, and then I'll do you next, ma'am.
Okay, I'm not gonna ask a question, but I'm gonna say this. I hear lots of good conversation, and everybody's pointing out all these agencies that should be involved and should be looking at and all that stuff. I just wanna point out to you all, it's up to us, okay? Those agencies will engage or may not engage whenever they do. Who knows what the findings will be? But to this point, we have been told nothing from our Board of Supervisors. They're still claiming ignorance. They're still saying that they think it's good for the county, but not a one of them has said why it's good. If it's financial, what are the numbers? How much is it gonna make the county? And oh, by the way, the trial years. Someone raised a couple meetings ago. What's the plan to measure if it's a success? Hang on, wait, I don't wanna go there right now.
But he's willing to speak.
But okay, so I'm like, speak you can. But what I'm saying is, you all, we have an opportunity coming up in what, 2 weeks?
Exactly.
Go vote. We need to change the Board of Supervisors.
Yes.
Because they're not being honest with us, and they support this.
Yes.
Now, also need to tell your neighbors and get them educated, because a lot of the county, I hate to say this, could care less. We gotta get them to understand, because it's scale, it's all about scale. American Cruise Lines is fine, so please, and the other thing is, show up at the Board of Supervisors. At the Board of Supervisors meetings, we have the people from our little village, and we get like 30 or 40 of us. We need people from Gloucester and people from York County that wanna
It's
say.
not a village issue,
this-
it's your
It
town
is, it's a
issue.
York County, anyway, so please, it's up to you all, it's not up to the Virginia Maritime, whatever, it's not up to whatever, it's up to the citizens to, make it happen.
Okay, I'd like to maybe introduce Mr. Ryan. Somebody suggested he might like to make it.
Well, this gentleman had, you were like, asked a question, so I want to give you the opportunity.
You go right ahead,
Okay.
sir, I'll follow up.
Thank you, good to see you, how you doing? Bob, how you doing, good to see you. So, good afternoon, folks, sorry late, had another thing we're doing early today and had to rearrange the schedule, but glad to make it out here. So, you had a question, I think, asking about what does York County get out of it?
Yeah, what's it gonna do for me?
And I think the biggest opportunity that we'll see in York County will be financial. We will get docking fees for the ship and the tenders, and we'll get passenger fees as well as potential tax revenue for people eating at our restaurants and shopping at our stores. And we saw that when
There's still room in the restaurants.
I'm sorry?
There's not gonna be any room in the restaurants.
There's not gonna be any room in the restaurants?
For the locals.
Yeah.
During the weekday, they're full?
Lines during the week.
During the weekdays, they're on? At noon of the weekdays, they're full.
Yeah.
That hasn't been my experience, but okay, but you're closer to it than I am, so that's great. But anyway, so that's the most direct answer to your question is
How are we gonna get
that.
docking fees from them docking at a nonprofit's dock?
Yeah.
I'm not aware of them docking at
Is it
nonprofit.
gonna be at the Mariners Museum? Does that belong to
Are
them?
there Waterman's plans?
That's their plan potentially in the future. I'm talking about the immediate 2 years. Right now, the plan is they're gonna tender people
Board of
in.
Supervisors requested $15 million for that plan. I
Board-
read the document.
Right, the Tom Shepard and Sheila Knoll wrote a letter to the State Appropriations Committee.
Right.
And said, hey, can you appropriate this money
Right.
for the potential of that pier? That's still sitting in appropriations. We haven't seen any of it. In fact, it's been reduced down to
But there's a
$7.5 million.
plan to build the pier. and
There is a-
And the county is involved in that plan.
Yeah, there was
And
a-
it was signed on letterhead with your name on it too.
Right, there was the early concept was to do that. But that's not what's on the docket for the next couple of years.
We're
It's
not
the top.
talking about, did you, what? I guess you came in late.
I was fortunately had
Well-
other engagement, yeah.
The problem is, and we said this in this presentation, and we cited a ton of examples. Once they get in, they expand. And they expand, and they've done it in ports all around the world. They've done it in Juneau, they've done it in Sitka, they've done it in Seattle, they've done it in Charleston. They do it everywhere. And once the business is in here, you can't get rid of them. And that is a problem. So I don't want to hear about a couple ships on a pilot program. I want to know how you're going to keep the cruise industry out of Yorktown, because once they get a toehold, they're not going to let go. And you're helping them by asking for $15 million for phase one of a very large pier.
But that's phase one beyond the next 2 years, if the next 2 years even work out.
We don't want the next 2 years, we want zero. We don't want them
Wrap
here.
the questions, when we get other people's questions,
Yeah.
we have a political.
I got a question.
All right, I think we're getting, okay.
Sure.
We'll take a few more minutes, Steve, and then we.
Well, no, let's go ahead, let's go to the room, what questions people have. So, think somebody back here, sir?
Yeah. Okay, so you got this ship coming through the bridge. That's
Yes,
a
sir.
huge ship. That's very much affected by the winds coming through that ship. Unlike the other ships that are coming through there, fairly low in the water, the only thing that they've got in the wind is their mast. This thing is a big kite coming through that. What if that thing runs into the bridge and knocks out all of the connectivity to the all the northern counties, the Northern Neck, Matthews, Gloucester, they're gonna be impacted that every time that thing comes through and goes out, okay? What about that? Is anybody, any of you guys talking to anybody in Gloucester or Matthews about the potential impact of adding yet 2 more openings, how many times a month to that? And then the impact of, what about the safety of having something that large going through there? You notice the Navy doesn't put carriers through there because they're too wide, okay? But all the other things are small. They easily fit in the channel. And they're controlled.
problem is, and I gotta apologize, the problem is during the pilot years, they're gonna start building the pier. I know the plan, I've seen the plan, I've seen the drawings.
They
If-
work
if-
on
if-
a
if-
5-year plan, they're
and
already
once they-
5 years ahead of us.
Once they get the pier built, it's.
Well, if that is happening, that's happening outside the county, because the county hasn't approved any funding, anything to build a pier anywhere.
But why are you going through it from the process like you normally do of, let's have the citizens pay for all the upfront work? And then we'll see if it works, like Marquee, okay? Do we want another one of those? Why don't you make that cruise line, who's the one that's gonna make the profit off of this, pay for the upfront expense? And reimburse us for what they're gonna do to our area here?
Which upfront expenses?
All of them, the pier, whatever remediation
already
has to
paid for
do.
security
You
cameras
have
down
port
there.
facilities, you have a
But
bunch of
that's
piers,
part of the
you have
normal
waste,
infrastructure down there.
you have pollution issues, you have potentially health issues for this. That all falls on us before this company that's gonna profit from all that gets to pay anything.
And typically, the expenses that we see down in the waterfront to support tourism comes from the tourism dollars that we get from the tourists that come in here. The law enforcement, personnel down there now are typically paid by tourism dollars.
Before you approve this, did you talk to any other ports?
Yes, ma'am.
Which ports did you talk to?
It's port, I don't know his name exactly, but ports up north, down in Charleston, both good and bad.
I'm asking you.
No,
Did
have I,
you
no,
talk to
personally,
anybody
no, I
about this
haven't, no, I have
prior?
not personally done that. We have a team
You
of
did
people
no
that,
research before signing any paperwork?
I haven't
that said
signed
you
any
were-
paperwork at all, ma'am. Nothing's coming to me to be
I've seen your
signed.
name on a number of the papers.
I have signed nothing, ma'am. Now,
Yeah.
so, did you show something with my signature on it?
No, I showed the Board of Supervisors letter asking for $15 million from the state.
Okay, so, right, so the
And
chair and the
it
vice chair, well, the chair, the incoming chair and the outgoing chair did that, much like we do with, profit sharing program with the VDOT, where you gotta put in the request, and maybe you'll see it later on.
Why would you
but-
put in a request for a pier if you weren't planning to have one?
Be-
You're saying that it's nothing to do with you.
And
that,
you nothing
you know,
but
I
question.
don't.
I'm not saying that doesn't have anything to do with me, but I'm hearing that I've signed documentation to do
You
something,
signed
and I haven't done that.
documentation that you wanted to build this pier, knowing nothing about it.
To be fair,
Right.
he didn't sign it. His name was on the letterhead with the rest of the Board of Supervisors.
Can
Do
we?
you support a pier?
I am not, a pier to support a cruise ship against our shores, I am not a fan of at all. That is beyond my ability to wrap my head around. Now,
I'm sorry, you guys, we are running out of time, and I appreciate the dialogue that's going on here, but I think that I would like to ask if anybody has any other questions of our presentation. And then we have this room until 4:30, after which everybody has to clear out because they're closing the library up. If you could stay a little bit longer, then perhaps you could talk, individually with Mr. Roan. So do you have any questions?
I have a question.
I'm not trying to cut you off.
No, you got time.
I just want to make sure that.
John, I have a question.
And Jerry.
Will the Board of Supervisors look at this presentation? Will you take it to them, Mr. Rowe? Because you missed the important part of it. The part about the pollution and all the stuff.
And I spent the better half of the day talking with Mr. Pageant about the issues that they've had in the past and how they're gonna prevent it going forward.
Well,
I mean, I said,
you need the whole presentation and the board needs to see it and you all need to do your homework.
yeah, get it, you get it, right?
Can we make this presentation at the next board meeting?
What's that?
Can we make this presentation at the next Board of Supervisors public meeting?
Probably not.
Can they don't want that?
Work with,
Maybe in forward.
Okay, we'll go on their website, Board of Supervisors website.
we figured that out somehow.
If possible, you
Figure the
better
mechanisms of it,
check,
right.
you better check with
Bob,
everybody.
the lady that,
Okay.
why I had a question on presentation.
Sorry.
So apologies, I came a little late as well. I did see kind of towards the tail end that it was mentioned that there was a veil of secrecy about it. Could you please expand on that a little bit? I'm just curious about the veil of secrecy comment.
Well, I'll give my perspective, and then you please chime in to give the board's perspective. So, we've seen emails from both Princess Cruise and Waterman, are confidential emails going back and forth with the county. to the administrator as well as other people in the tourism. And it was going back and forth for some time. As Mr. Rohn knows, they signed a letter back in December to ask for the pier, and there was all sorts of information going back and forth. There was planning meetings going on all the time. At the July meeting, as I showed you, basically the board said they had little to nothing to do about it. In Chad Green's words, he just had a very brief statement, I know nothing, all right? And yet, all this was going on. Tom Shepard said he was not aware of anything with the staff. He had only one meeting, and so nothing was going on. So we're seeing all of this stuff going on between our county staff and private entities to make this arrangement to send a letter to ask for state funding, where the letter was drafted by Princess Cruise Lines. And yet, nobody in the public was made aware of any of that. We find out because it shows up in the itinerary for Princess Cruise later on.
And in FOIA, and then a lot of these
And
emails
we
say,
only know that
"For eyes
because it
only,
was
do not
FOIA."
share." We can go public now, we can come out of the closet, and all of this is happening, and you guys, us, know nothing about what's going on.
And we know from articles that this is the mode that Princess Cruise works in. They work behind the scenes and they have lack of transparency, as I showed from some of the other information that I pulled off the web. So that's what I mean about the lack of transparency. All of this went on without citizen input, and apparently.
Let's let him talk. What does he know about it?
So, earlier when I heard the veil of secrecy, I responded to that pretty poorly because I have talked to many people about everything I know about the cruise line. I have published newsletters about it, dumped every bit of information I've had. Ms. Chesley and I have talked about it. You just came on board with it here recently. I've been sharing every bit of information I know about that. So I reacted poorly to that because I've tried everything I can to share every bit of information that I know about it. Now, yeah, I think you're right. Well, I know you're right that between county staff and Princess Cruise Line, there have been messages back and forth as they're trying to plan and coordinate and so forth before it even got to on our radar. And then, so I've been involved in 3 meetings specifically about Princess Cruise Line. One I think was back in early part of this year, into last year. I can't remember the time frame exactly, when I got a phone call that says, hey, Princess is interested in coming to visit York County. They want to give her a presentation, so I came up to the county offices and sat down through the presentation. The second one was when I went with Tom Shepard and a few other county staff, and we went to visit John Pageant and some of his senior staff to talk about issues that we had concern with. Some of the stuff that you guys have talked to me about that I brought forward and said, hey, our folks are concerned about your pollution issues and your history there. What are you going to do about that to make sure that doesn't happen here in York County? So we spent the better part of the day having that conversation. The third meeting was at the Revolutionary War Museum. So those are the 3 meetings that I've been into related to Princess Cruise Line. I haven't been any other meet beyond that. So, but I'm like I said, I know that the county and Princess have been working together to coordinate things. But so when I hear veil of secrecy, I get a little uptight about that because I have not tried to have any type of veil of secrecy. I've been as upfront as I can about it. So
You just not be transparent.
Right. So I'm glad y'all could find this stuff and have put it together. In fact,
The county should be doing the homework, we're doing all the homework.
Well,
The county should.
well, we can put together the same presentation for you, but then unless you do it yourself, you're not really sure. So you pull it together, you're pretty confident in everything, so that's great. So we'll take that forward and work with that as well, so that's good.
So Steve,
We just wondered why the county didn't do
if
that
I take,
first
if
before
I
they
take just the
started
words,
supporting.
you're a nice guy, I'm sure you're being straight with it, but, I guess, at a minimum, it's just, I'm losing my train of thought, I apologize. Let me move on.
Well, I'll tell you one thing too, let me help you a little bit too. One thing that we've been frustrated about with the county is from the get-go, we've been asking Princess, what are your plans? Not pie in the sky, real world, immediate, what are your plans? And it took until whenever that meeting was at the Revolutionary War Museum before they finally presented. And because of that, there was a lot of speculation. We didn't know. We're speculating as well as other people as well.
Shut it down.
Finally nailed it down and got it out in front of all of us, and now we have something to work against. We didn't have anything before this.
I remember, let me finish, I remembered my thought, so.
I'm glad I helped you there.
I told you guys at the beginning, I'm not a public speaker. So, part of the challenge though is, you talked with John Paget,
Yep.
the president of Princess Cruise, and you asked him about these concerns.
Yep.
Well, what we've learned is that they've done the same thing and made false claims to many small port towns that are now trying to limit and ban cruise ships. They come in and they don't give you the full story. They're not a good business partner for many reasons. I was telling the group earlier, there's a group called Friends of Earth that ranks them in terms of an F in terms of transparency. They do things behind closed doors. They have bad business practices. Their ships are from outside of the U.S. You don't have to follow U.S. labor laws. They're awful polluters, world-class polluters. You can't believe how bad it is. It's just incredible. And so you can't ask Princess Cruises about that, because I heard the story, I heard what they said, and that story has a lot of false things in it, and it's on the county website.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not taking them at their word. That's just a piece of the puzzle as far as I'm concerned.
Two
So,
letters.
okay. Yeah, that's just a piece of the puzzle.
I wanna, look, it's already 4 o'clock, and we have to clean this up, this place up by 4:30. It's all right, folks. Ladies had it up for a while. I also wanna share my take on this pilot study we just.
Since Mr. Rome knows.
Yes, one of them.
Since you know now how upset the county is, the majority of the county, and there are still a lot more out there, what is going to be, how are you going to support us to make sure that this doesn't get done? That's our concern.
Well, so
You know, we don't want it. The county wasn't asked, the people, the taxpayers were not asked, we are not involved, but now you know how upset we are and what we don't want. So what are we going to do together with you and us to make sure that this does not happen?
So here's the challenge, because as I've been out past, really since June particularly, but since even before then, I've also spoken to a number of people who are very interested in the cruise ship coming here, who are excited about it, who wanted to come here.
There are some,
No, there's more than some, because I've talked.
Well, what do they
to
know?
people, and some of that percentage of that group are interested in it. So I got to balance what y'all want along with the other folks as well. I can't simply ostracize one group to support another. I have to support everybody in the county, and I gotta look to see what is best for York County.
This isn't.
All right,
Do they have
guys.
the right information? Do they have the information? Are they excited because they think a cruise ship would be fun and don't know about all the rest of this stuff? How will we get the word out to them so that they?
Well, y'all are doing a good job with this here, and
It's
we'll
just
take
a few of
the
us.
report, like we talked about, so.
But the board of supervisors needs to be the clearinghouse. You work for us,
Yeah.
not Princess Cruise.
Absolutely. I have no vested interest in Princess Cruise Line other than what it might be able to do beneficial to York County. If it's not beneficial, I have
It's
no
not.
interest at all in it.
It's not beneficial to York.
It's not.
Well, we say that, but.
It's not.
How do you know it's not?
It isn't.
Find just
It
one
isn't.
place that says they were beneficial to us. When we find one place that tells us they were beneficial, then I'll believe you. But Bergen, Norway, all these other places are saying they were not.
Instead of seeing the beginning of the show, and that's why I think it's important that we have a dialogue with the board, educate the board of supervisors what we found. All we do is we come to the meeting, and we read our 3 minutes of whatever, and there's no dialogue between us and the board of supervisors.
One more question over here, and then, we can continue this discussion if everybody will help us get these chairs out of here. Go ahead.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes,
during
ma'am.
the pilot program, the 2-year pilot program, it's my understanding that the ships will anchor out and tender in to the public dock,
Correct.
which will be closed to York County residents and taxpayers.
And that's wrong.
Because it's an international cruise terminal.
One of the piers, not all of the piers.
All right? It should be none of the piers closed to the public, the taxpayers are responsible for those piers.
Right.
I know that because I was asked to leave the pier last week.
Right. And actually, unless you have a boat on the dock, no one's allowed on the
I
pier.
wasn't even on the pier, I was on the walkway when I was asked to leave the area.
I thought you went past the gate. Okay, that's fine.
Hang on, we have one more question. I want to have an ability to tell you what my thoughts are about this pilot program. After you ask your question, please.
I was just curious if you would commit to having some kind of a championing of the presentation of this presentation to the board and like a special meeting or something, or only citizen input?
Just a public meeting. That's all we ask for.
I'm okay with that, whatever the mechanics are to make that happen, because it needs to be publicly advertised in advance and all of that too. And I have to admit, I don't know the mechanics behind it, but as far as the principle, yeah, why not?
Mr. Shepherd promises a public meeting a while ago, and it never happened. Okay, here's my take on the pilot project. Follow the money, that's the message. Princess has already created these drawings for the up here at the Waterman's Museum. In the original budget deliberations, the museum was specifically mentioned. In the final budget, that specificity was taken out of it. I think the pilot project is a smokescreen. They are so far in advance beyond this little pilot project. We're to see if it works. They have already invested the money in politicians.
Aren't they selling tickets?
They're selling tickets, oh yeah. So, you know, they want us to focus on this pilot project. It might work, might not. It's gonna work, because they're already putting money into it. And
It's gotta work.
by the time we realize what's going on, that pier is gonna be under construction. The budget was for the 23-24 fiscal year. And there's another $7.5 million in the following year's budget. Where's that money going? I mean, you know, it's not just gonna sit there until this pilot project is done. It's gonna be used to build a pier. So don't think that this pilot program is just an innocuous little trial run. It's a diversion, in my opinion.
Is there not a connection between someone at Carnival Cruises and the museum, a personal connection?
Yes.
Did I hear that wrong? Is there not a connection between someone involved in this and this museum over here?
Yeah, there's a lot of connected dots.
It's a one-person connection. It's like a driving force. Is that correct?
Unless you had her answer questions.
Now, I'm just suspicious because I'm a fraud investigator by the way. So I'm suspicious of anything that smells like a fraud.
We need to have your help.
Several questions.
I like her.
I have a whole page. So here you go. What did you say about the current 8.5 million that was in the budget? So has it been appropriated? Has it been sent to the county?
No, as of Friday, it has not. I asked that question on Friday. It's still
What is
sitting
the
in the state.
deadline of when it's supposed to be sent to the county?
I'm not aware of the deadline, other than plans to move forward, but right now there are no plans to move forward, so I don't know of a deadline that exists right now.
Can I comment on that too? One of the stipulations of the budget, I've got a copy of it, if anybody wants to see it, it's on page 108 of the state Commonwealth budget. One of the requirements for the release of that money was that a cruise ship had to come into the York River in 2023. Guess what happened? The World Cruise Ship appeared a couple of weeks ago. And so that requirement was fulfilled, so that money can now be released. It's in the budget, it's gonna come to York County Tourism. So don't think that it's nebulous, it's definitely there.
So how do we know, so what in the county, how do we know when the money is actually sent?
We don't, and we probably won't ever know.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll tell you what.
I'm sorry, that was not a fair statement. I appreciate that, I should have said it.
I'm here in this meeting. Is there anybody else got any more questions? Because I have a lot. Okay.
Well, we need it, don't forget, we had to be out of here.
I don't really care.
Go ahead.
All right, first of all, I want to thank you for coming. Okay? This is an emotional issue. Whether we like the conversation or not, it's an emotional issue. Right? So I thank you for coming. But I really think the Board of Supervisors, if you want to get buy-in, because everyone knows about leadership, right? If you want to get buy-in, the Board of Supervisors, you can get me off that camera right now.
Oh, you don't want me on it?
No, I do not.
Okay.